Amazing.
Okay. Hi, it's John Breeze from the 1 Hour Startup, and I'm here at Jimmy's Coffee today. Very special occasion. This is the first video I'm shooting in a series of interviews on the Toronto startup scene. So I thought I'd start things off with Phil Horison, who built this place. Well, he didn't build the building, obviously, but he created quite a nice little space here. In fact, we'll take him for a little walk around the place after we have a little chat, I guess.
Sounds good.
And so that's it. I was drawn to this place because when I first got to Toronto, I was really excited about the startup scene, and I read that a lot of startups like to hang out at the other location. So I guess part of my hopes to have like startup entrepreneurs hanging around here in the Kensington location. So the one thing I want to ask you first, and, you know, you're a serial entrepreneur. That's the way the press likes to label you.
So, yeah, that's right.
So do you want to like take us down like memory lane about like some of the first businesses you had?
Sure. I've basically been in business for myself since I was 17. I've never actually had a real job other than high school jobs, like summer jobs. And at 17, a friend and myself started a painting company because we just couldn't stand working in the shit kind of jobs you get as a student, you know, factories or whatever, and really terrible money. So we started this painting company. Of course, we didn't know anything about painting or taking care of people's houses or anything. So, but before we even, I mean, we'd done jobs for our parents around the house, just odd jobs and stuff. So, you know, we had a good feeling for it. But the first thing we asked ourselves is, how do you get a customer? You know, how do you get a new customer? So my dad was an entrepreneur, and his specialty really was sales. Even though he owned his own business and ran a business, his true talent was sales. So we called up my dad and we asked him, how do you get customers? And he said, you just go knocking on doors. And we were like shocked to hear it was that simple. We were like, no, you don't actually knock on people's doors. He goes, yeah, go knock on people's doors. So basically I started on one side of the street and my friend started on the other side. We knocked on 3 or 4 doors and we were booked for the whole summer. Like literally it took 20 minutes. It was unbelievable, and I couldn't believe how effective it was. We just hit that one person that needed a ton of stuff done, and he was our thing. And we're still friends today, actually, that customer, that first customer that we had.
Now that's one thing I want to point out to people watching right now, because I just want to show them how easy it is to actually start something. Like Phil just went knocking door to door.
Yeah.
That's how my dad started his own business. He went delivering flyers right to people's doors, and within a week he had a fully functioning business, just like that.
Yeah, I did later on resort to flyers and things like that too, as the years went on and things got a little bit more busy. But still, the actual knocking face-to-face, door-to-door, as much as I don't like doing that, it was the most effective, and always is the most effective way to get, you know.
So then, moving forward after the painting, so then you started like other...
Like other business, yeah, I mean, first, well, I finished school, I got through university with that painting business, which was great. I was able to afford to pay my own way through school, for the most part, and, you know, I actually had a pretty good lifestyle back then, probably rivaling my lifestyle today almost. Like, I had a car, I had an apartment, I got to travel. It was, you know, when you're in school, the expenses aren't super high, so, you know, the money I made from the painting business was pretty decent, so it turned out to be pretty good once I got a handle on it. And then I got into acting, you know, after I graduated from university, and I spent, you know, a great number of years doing that, pursuing that, and that was a tough business. I mean, it's, you know, it's all the cliches you hear are true. It's very difficult to break. And I was making a living at one point, but never, only as a day player for the most part. So I'd get booked for a few days here and there, and it was pretty consistent. But things weren't really moving forward, and I hated having no control over how things were going to go for me. In other words, it was up to someone else whether I got an audition. It was up to someone else whether I got hired. I couldn't really go door to door in that case, and I did. I actually did go to production companies and seek directors, and I actually did get booked that way, but it wasn't the normal way to do things. It was an aggressive approach, and it actually hurt me in the long run because it was going, well, I was going past the casting people, and I was kind of overstepping their job, and they didn't, therefore they stopped calling me in as much. I mean, I could have probably still made a living doing that, but it would have been a very meager one, a very tough one, and very unpredictable as to when, you know, the food was going to be on the table, sort of thing. So once I decided to settle in Toronto, because I moved to LA to pursue that, and once I spent a year down there and, you know, kind of hustled down there a little bit, once I decided I was actually going to stay in Toronto and you know, kind of do my thing here, I set my sights on opening, you know, legitimate business once I got back, and that was the nightclub business. Again, I had no experience, didn't know anything about how to open a place, how to run a place. I didn't know how to do any of the jobs in a bar. But my friend, and who eventually became my partner, was a bartender. So we had a little bit of very basic, what I thought was a lot of knowledge, but it turned out to be a very basic amount. So we learned on the job, essentially, and it turned out to be a very successful venture. We found it took us a while to find a place because our funds were so limited. We couldn't just take any space and renovate, get permits, do all that sort of thing. So we needed essentially to find a place that was a bar that had gone under, that we could just walk in, take over.
And did you guys like basically bootstrap your way up with that?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, we opened the first bar, it was like 50 grand. We scraped together and we got the doors open, and it was a real struggle the first year or so. I mean, literally, I'd be running to the bank in the morning with whatever meager amount. And then we just kept, again, door-to-door thing. I started doing flyers door-to-door. I started standing out on the street, handing out little brochures, like advertising the club. And it actually caught on. You know, it slowly caught on. And then eventually, within a year, we were doing quite well. And within 2 years, we were doing $2 million a year in sales in that place. And it lasted 10 years that far.
Okay, so there you have it, like $2 million in, what was it, your second or third year?
Yeah, between second and third year.
Okay, $2 million a year between second and third year, just out of like sheer hustle.
Sheer hustle. But I had a schedule for me. We actually had two partners when we first opened, so we pitched in to get the club going. And regardless of what work we had to do at the bar, what our job was, I got maps of the surrounding area. And I had them up in my office walls, and everyone had to work at least 2 hours extra a day delivering flyers door to door. For this, I mean, for a nightclub, it's unheard of. It's so basic and, you know, almost uncool, but it actually worked. And here's one great example of something we got out of that. One day I was bartending, and this guy came in, and I see he's reading a call sheet, which is basically a schedule for a shooting schedule on a film. I know what it is because from my acting experience. So right away I said, oh, you know, what are you working on? And we got talking about, you know, he's working on this film. He's like, yeah, I'm a director. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, they're a dime a dozen, right? You hear this story all the time. Then he starts talking about how Whoopi Goldberg's in this movie that he's directing, and John Bon Jovi's in it, and Gwyneth Paltrow, and all these big movie stars. I'm like, holy smokes, this guy's like the real deal, like from Hollywood, a real director, right? So we get talking, and we hit it off quite well. And I said, hey, how did you find my bar? And he goes, oh, yesterday someone left a flyer in my door. I'm like, you're kidding. And he goes, yeah. I go, which street, if you don't mind my asking? And he described the street. I said, I actually delivered that myself, right? So we got chatting. The next day I get a phone call from his production company. They want to bring the entire cast and executive producers and whatnot to the bar for a little get-together. So the very next day, Gwyneth Paltrow, John Bon Jovi, Kathleen Turner, Elizabeth Perkins all come into the bar, and I told them, I can't close down, it's a Friday night. They said, no problem, just reserve a section for us. They all come in, Bon Jovi's there, hanging out, it's super cool. The director's name was David Enspa. We became pretty good friends. We hung out every day at our bar. We basically became his friends in Toronto when he wasn't working. Super nice guy. And then, I don't know, 6-8 months later, we get a call from a record company that John Bon Jovi's having a party after the concert when he's on tour, and they want to use the Bohemian. So again, we got this other. So basically, from that one flyer, I figured we got about $20,000 worth of business, right? And it's like you just don't know how powerful something small like that can be. You know, I mean, it really opened my eyes.
Well, you know, I'm glad that you brought all that up, because one thing I find unfortunate in today's startup climate is people are too dependent on things like Google AdWords.
Yeah. You
know, they want to keep things as online as possible, and they forget about like direct response.
Yeah.
You know, and you also had, if you chose to, you could have keyed the flyers to know exactly how much of a result you were getting.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I guess at a certain point, if you're running, say, a bigger company where there's a lot of money getting spent on advertising and promotion, you'd want to hone in on exact results a little bit more. And I'm sure those stats are available somewhere. Yeah. Probably online you find all kinds of what the actual numbers are. But for me, it's more a matter of what your resort. You know, when you're new, when you're small, your resources are limited.
Yeah.
So therefore, what can you do? You know, you got a lot of time, you don't have a lot of money, right? And then as you get busier, it's the opposite. You got a lot of money, you don't have any time.
Yeah.
So that's when you kind of. But I never believed in paying, especially for like restaurants. You know, things where like goods and service. I don't know. I guess hospitality. I don't believe in advertising for that. I don't believe that works. I'm never going to go to a restaurant because I see an ad. I will go if I read a review or someone tells me. Word of mouth is always the strongest. So the customer you have is always the best customer you can get because they're the ones that are going to spread the word, right? So that's, you know, again, customer service. That was our big thing at Bohemian. It's my big thing with the coffee shop now.
Actually, that's a subject I want to broach because I noticed that all of your staff is like very outgoing and very knowledgeable about the product. You know, like they're very present. You know, I mean, you go to some other places like I think it was a Second Cup I went to the other day, and they were just talking to each other. I'm right there waiting. You know, whereas all the times I've come over to Jimmy's Coffee, never the case. Like they're right there on the ball.
I think. I mean, obviously we do have a great staff, and you know, they really take. The coffee is that kind of culture. They're really into the coffee. They're really into what they're doing, which is amazing. But also we have the luxury of being small enough to keep an eye on it and to communicate that easily. That's you know a priority. And look, people want to work. It's amazing. You put an ad out, how many people respond to an ad for work? People want to work. There's lots of people that are looking for work. So therefore, we're lucky to live in a city where the supply and demand is in our favor. I think what you're describing to me seems like companies get big and it's harder to communicate that down through the ranks.
Did you by any chance read Franco Day's biography?
No.
No?
Is that the guy from Second Cup?
Yeah.
No, I'd like to though. I heard it's quite a story.
Good. I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, I'd love to read that. I've read the most recent Starbucks. It was called Onward. I mean, they ran into the same problem, right? They got too big, too fast, and they had to restructure. They closed 1,000 stores, 2008. And I remember clearly someone telling me, I was just about to open the first Jimmy's. I was about 6 months away from opening.
Yeah.
And someone said, oh, finally the coffee market's saturated. I thought, what a thing to say, you know? Especially to me when they know I'm opening a new coffee shop. And I was like, it's so easy to get sucked into comments and people's opinions.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't, no, and of course, years later this book came out, I read it. It was a fascinating book. It was basically about the 2008 crash and how it affected them and what they had to do to turn things around. Now, the crash didn't affect them directly like it did other companies, but it was coincidence that when that was happening, they were also going through like a serious number of problems in their company, mainly from overexpanding. And it had nothing to do with the market being saturated. Zero. There's always room for, you know, it's the most popular drink in the world, right? I mean, so when I opened my last bar, someone said, oh, does the world need another bar, right? And he was a musician. I said, does the world need another musician? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean, right? It doesn't. It's a bullshit comment.
Well, I think it's also, I'm sure as an entrepreneur you've heard of this concept. I've encountered it myself. You have like haters who just try to bring you down because, you know, they can't accomplish or they don't have the guts to pursue what you pursue.
Yeah, and quite often it's just an innocent comment, but those innocent comments, I mean, can really stack up in your brain, right? And if I went to that person today, they probably wouldn't even remember saying it. Like, it was that insignificant, but I remember it, right? And it's like, I read a book, and I'm sure you're familiar with Think and Grow Rich, right? I mean, that talks a lot about negative comment, negative talk, negative people. You know, and again, you can't stop the world from saying what they're going to say, and you don't have to be overly sensitive to what they're saying, but you have to digest it properly. That, you know what, if you have a vision and you have something you want to do, win, lose, or draw, stick to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be prepared to lose. Be prepared to win. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter in the end. It's not. I'm not here for money, right? I'm not, because money's not a motivator. Right? It's the number one thing they teach you in business school. It's what is your motivation? You know what I mean? If it's simply to get up in the morning and try to build that machine and try to get that thing going and see where it goes. I don't think in terms of dollars. I just think in terms of what's next in front of me that needs to be done right now. You know what I mean?
And would you say like, because, well, we're going to take the viewers on a tour in a second, but would you say that one of your principal exciters about like Jimmy's Coffee is just building a brand, building like, you know, this decor that people recognize and identify with?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the whole thing was by fluke anyway. I mean, I wasn't even planning to be in the coffee business. It was an accident almost. I bought a building. I mean, that's my main business is real estate. I buy and sell real estate. And actually, in the last number of years, I switched from that to just only buying now. Like, I don't even want to sell because we're, again, just lucky to be in Toronto where the market continues to go up. We can't say that in every city in North America, even in Canada. We can't say that. So I can't take credit for anything because I've been lucky to be born in the city where I stayed, and it's been a great ride so far, you know. Anything I bought 15, 12 years ago is doubled and tripled in some cases.
Yeah. And
the rents go accordingly, right? So the first Jimmy's was just along those lines. It was a boarded up, abandoned house that was zoned commercially. And I got a call that, I knew it was for sale. I got a call. It was for sale for quite a while, actually. So I don't even want it to seem like I scooped up some great deal. It was there for 2 years for sale.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wanted it.
Wow.
Right? That, the building beside and the building where Gusto is now, they were all boarded up, slated